everybody, it's Dana Joy and welcome back to the Hero Arts YouTube channel. Today we're going to be making a sweet little birthday card using the color layering stamp set and coordinating die. And we're also going to be using the streamer stencil because what's a party without some streamers? All right, let's go ahead and get into it. I already picked out my color combination. What I like to do is stamp out all of my colors and I keep them in a little binder, and this allows me to pick the colors that work well together. Then there's no guessing to this. So I'm laying out my colors just to make sure that they're the color palette that I like, a kind of muted happy birthday, and I'll be sure to link all of these colors in the description box below. So with my color palette already done, we are now ready to start the card. So for this, I'm going to be using my Misty because this is going to allow me to double stamp my images. So in the stamp set, it's a color layering stamp set. So you're going to get one lower portion or first stamp part, and then you're going to get a layered part that goes on top of it. So I'm placing down my cupcake first, and this is the bottom layer. So it's going to be the one that's a little bit more solid. I can pick that up with my Misty, and then I can go ahead and stamp the color. Now, I always want to start with my lighter color, so I'm going to use the Fresh Peach for this. You want to start with your lightest color and then move to your darkest color, excuse me. So go ahead and stamp that down. Now, when you're doing these layering cupcakes, if you're a little off, it's okay. It's a very forgiving stamp. So keep that in mind. We don't have to have perfection using this because it's meant to be a little bit off kiltered, in my opinion. I find that it's really not hard to line up, but if you're a little bit off, it's still going to be okay. You're going to have a fantastic image. I have that first layer down. I'm going to go ahead and clean that off. And now I need to come in with my next layer. That is the one that has more of a line pattern on it and is not as solid, I'll say. Excuse my head. You're going to see all my great wisdom sparkles throughout the video because I didn't realize how close my camera was to my head. So I pressed down that top layer, and this is going to give us the ridges that are going to be in that cupcake. I like to always make sure that my paper is stuck in the corner of my Misty, and then I'm going to come in with that pale tomato. So this is going to darken up or kind of like reinforce those lines. So go ahead and close my Misty lid. I'll go ahead and stamp that down. And now you can start seeing that cupcake kind of come to life. I'm going to double stamp this because I want my lines to be a tad bit darker. So I go ahead and press that down, and now you can really see the grooves in that cupcake layer. So that's what's so perfect about using the color layering stamps by Hero Arts, because you're allowed to have that detail to your stamping with just using a stamp and not having to add anything else to it. Now I'm going to stamp my cupcake layer. Now again, there's those wonderful wisdom sparkly hairs. And I'm going to line that up at the bottom of my cupcake little tin. I'm going to clean off that with my finger. Some of these stamps are new, and I like to rub my finger over them first just to make sure I get off any residue. I'm going to come in with that brown color. This is going to be my lightest brown color. And for this one here, I think I just want to stay with my soft brown and layer that on top of it with my second layer. So again, this is the most solid layer that I have. And now I'm coming in with that detailed layer. Again, I'm just picking points on each stamp of where to line up the next stamp. Again, this is a very forgiving stamp set. So if you're a little off, it's okay. It's still going to look great. I just try to find like a point on the stamp that mimics where I need to stamp next. I hope that makes sense when I say that. So now I'm going to go right back in with that soft brown, and I'm going to stamp this out a few times. So remember, if you have just one ink, you can stamp it multiple times in order to get that same color, but a deeper variation of that color. So as you can see, I stamped that, and now it's just a tad bit darker than the bottom layer. It's going to be a tad bit darker. So remember, if you don't have a lot of inks, grab out your color that you have and double, triple stamp it. Next, I'm coming in with the solid layer, and this is for my icing. I like to pick kind of points, again, where I see that I can line up the image. Now, if you don't want to do this, or you're kind of like stuck on, I don't know if that's going to match up, I'm going to show you a little trick in which you can pinpoint the spots that you need in order to get it lined up a little bit more accurately. So next, I'm coming in with my lightest of my yellows. And I'm going to stamp this twice because this yellow is a very, very pale yellow. So I want to make sure that I stamp this twice. Again, I could leave it light, or I can stamp it 2 or 3 times. It doesn't make a difference. But when I pull this back, I want that to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to stamp that one more time. This color, I believe, is soft vanilla. So I can line that back up. I can press back down. And then when I lift that up, I'm going to have that a tad bit darker. Next, I'm going to go on to the top layer of the cupcake. And this is where I'm going to kind of show you that little tip in case you feel like you're not lining something up correctly. First, I'm going to come in with the stamp. And again, I'm just kind of picking points where I can see where I'm going to have that next layer lined up. So I'm just kind of sliding it over, trying to get an overhead view. But you can also do this. Use the packaging. The packaging will show you exactly where things line up. So I kind of can see like my points that I want to line up. Now I can bring back in my stamp. I find those same points. And then I can lay that right down on top of that. So just remember with the color layering, you can also use the packaging to kind of help assist your eye on where to line things up. Now I can go ahead and close down my Misty lid. And now I'm going to come in with my darker yellow, which is my butter bar. Now this stamp set makes beautiful cupcakes. You can add sprinkles to them as well. You can add cherries to the top. I'm sending this to my nephew, so I don't really want to add my normal colorful things to it. So I'm going to keep it kind of clean and simple for him. So I do want that top layer to be a tad bit darker. So again, I can double stamp with the same color ink. I'm just going to get a deeper color. And look how pretty the cupcake is. Absolutely love, love, love how this cupcake turned out. Now, I did want to stamp that darker part right around my cupcake one more time. The color kind of faded back a little bit. So I'm just going to line that back up. Again, super easy to line up. Going to put my 2 endpoints. Then I can go ahead and pick that up again. Now, I do make several of these cupcakes, but instead of boring you with repeating, stamping the same image again, I went ahead and did those offline. So you see that comes out just a tad bit darker. And I'm going to stamp it one more time, just for good measures, because I can. I'm using a Misty. And now we have a fantastic cupcake. All right, we're going to go ahead and start on the back. But here's the other cupcakes that I stamped out. And I also put some chocolate sprinkles on the top because everything goes better with sprinkles. Now for the background, I'm going to grab a piece of sand cardstock. Now my card is going to be a little bit bigger. It's going to be a 5x7 card. Now, obviously I have a stencil that's not 5x7, but I'm going to show you how you can use a regular 6x6 stencil and actually put it on a larger card panel. So I have this down and I'm just going to tape the streamer stencil onto the cardstock, just kind of in the corners. And then I'm also going to stick it down to the mat I'm using. I'm coming in again with that soft brown and adding in those streamers. Now you can do this in a color, but I really did not want the color to kind of overtake my cupcakes. So I decided to keep the background a little bit more of a neutral color palette. So nothing is competing. But I think if I was doing this on white cardstock, I might have added that fun pop in the background. And also if I had a brighter color palette. This palette is a little bit more subdued, and that's exactly what I wanted for this card. So I just placed a piece of paper there so I did not go over the edge of my stencil. Now I don't want all of this to look matchy-matchy. So some areas are going to be lighter and some areas are going to be darker. So now all I have to do is bring in that stencil one more time, and I'm shifting it just off to the side, just to the side where I need to get the rest of that image. I'm going to come in a little bit darker here because I just kind of want my edges to be darker. Most of this is going to be covered up by the cupcakes, but I still want to make sure the design is throughout. So the right side looks a little bit more darker to me. So I'm going to go right back to the left side, line that back up, and I'm just going to deepen up one of the corners. That's what's so great about using a stencil. You can easily line up your design again. And if you have to stamp over it, or not stamp, sponge over it, you'll be able to do that. So I just wanted to darken up that little corner there. And now we have a great muted background for our card. But remember, you can always use your stencil to go further in the design if you need to. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this onto a 5x7 card base. And this is made with the Dove white cardstock. I'll go ahead and press that down, and you're going to see, because the background is muted, it's really not going to overtake the cupcakes. I need the cupcakes to be the star of the show here. So now I can line them up, and you see I have that great fun background, but nothing is competing. You can also do this just with embossing ink if you want to, and then it would just be clear. Now I'm just going to grab one of the sentiments. And usually when I have a trio like this, I like to keep the sentiment kind of centered and grounded towards the bottom of the middle image. So I'm just going to move up my cupcakes a little bit and then place my sentiment underneath. Now, since I pretty much know where I want it, I can go ahead and pick up my Misty, place that in there, and I can stamp out my sentiment. Now I do want my sentiment to be a tad bit darker than that soft brown color. I could stamp the soft brown several times, but instead I'm going to use a darker brown. Just making sure I have this straight before I begin to stamp. And for that darker brown, I'm going to be using a Cup of Joe Mid-Tone Hero Arts ink. That's going to give me a deeper brown, but it's not going to be black. I didn't want to put black on this card. So I'm going to stamp that once, and I want this to be like a deep, deep brown. So I'm going to stamp this multiple times. Again, you can stamp it once and you're going to have a lighter brown. You're going to have the brown that's the original color. The more you stamp, the darker the color is going to get. So I'll stamp that a couple times. I think that looks good with that soft brown background. So just a sweet birthday, or have a sweet birthday. I can go ahead and set that aside, and now we can go ahead and build up the card. Now this stamp set is perfect if you just want to stamp out one of the cupcakes or three of the cupcakes. I knew I wanted to have a larger card panel, but I want two of these to be flat on the card panel and one to be popped up. So I'm just trying to figure out which one of those I want to be popped up with foam tape. So I'll just get my layout correct. I'm going to move them in just a little bit from the edge. Now, if you wanted to, you could measure this. I'm not into measuring anything. So I just kind of eyeball it all because I think it's going to look great regardless. And then I can start putting down my cupcakes. I'm using the Hero Art Precision Glue for this. And again, I'm going to have that middle cupcake kind of overlap the two in the middle once it's popped up. So I'll come in with the second cupcake, and look how pretty those cupcakes looks, like yummy. Now I'm thinking like I need cupcakes. I mean, I'm a sprinkle girl always, but I could really use some cupcakes too. So I'm just going to shift that last one, and then I can go ahead and grab some pop-up dots and go ahead and pop up the last one in the middle. Now this is a really simple and easy card to replicate. If you have time on your hands and you're not quite sure what to do, stamp out some cupcakes, place them aside, and you'll have them for your next cards. That's a good way to kind of get back your creativity when you kind of lost your mojo. And of course, who wouldn't want to do that with some colorful cupcakes? I know I do. So the last part, all I have to do is peel off the backings. I probably could have used just a bigger strip of foam tape on here, but these are the pop-up dots I had close on hand. So now I can just go ahead and pop that right in the middle. And then our color layered cupcake card is done. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I will see you back again in another video soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.